Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions regarding this watch. Today, we are discussing an outstanding example of value from Omega, a watch that has all the capability and then some. This is the Seamaster Planet Ocean GMT. So, as you can see, this is the 43.5 millimeter stainless steel case, lyre style lugs featuring outward and inward bevels. It's got a chunky profile, there's no doubt about that. 17.5 millimeters thick, so this is a thick watch. 50 millimeters lug to lug if we're just including the case, but if we include the solid end links to the bracelet, 54.3 millimeters across the wrist with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. So this is the GMT as it existed between roughly 2011 and 2015. A new model came on as a master chronometer in 2016, so you get a sense of the time frame during which this watch was offered. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you could see that it's a large piece, but it does fit. It's more thick than anything else. It doesn't seem excessively broad, and you can see that the lugs don't quite hit the edge of my wrist, more so down the barrel, just like this, as I call it, down the barrel. You can see that the lugs are not out over the edge of my wrist, so I could recommend this watch for a wrist my size, 16 centimeters or larger. It's meaty. You feel like you get a lot here. The heft in the hand is almost like precious metal. The bracelet's a 3-link design. You can see staggered link size, staggered link alignment. Outer faces are polished, the top satin. There's a little bit of a taper down from the conforming end link, and then we get to the removable links, which are fixed by screws. You can see that there's an intermediate size link in there in case you're in between sizes when you're sizing this down. The clasp is a single swing arm with thick gauge steel. You can see it closes. The engraving on the clasp still very deep and well defined. Polished bevels on the side, twin trigger release to pop it open. It's not friction fit. It cannot accidentally open itself. We have another set of thick gauge steel components, a swing out dive extension for use over a diving suit or even just a thick winter coat or sweater. We have a crown with a combination of polish and media blast, case flank in satin and polish, screw down crown, 600-meter water resistance. Now this is not strictly speaking a diver because the bezel is bidirectional, though in a quirk uncommon on GMT style watches, it is still a 120 click bezel. We've got the helium escape valve for saturation divers, so if helium builds up during your extended dive, during your one big decompression from a saturation dive, it will not blow out the crystals or the seals. You just open this little valve as you begin to decompress, and helium will exit the interior of the watch as interior pressure exceeds exterior by 2 to 3 bar. Now this is the ceramic bezel insert era of the Seamaster Planet Ocean, and you can see it is a black ceramic insert to grant the bezel scratch resistance. Bidirectional rotating. Now you can use this as a timing bezel if you wish. Just keep in mind this is primarily a calculator bezel. So you can calculate GMT minus or GMT plus. So you've got the local hour hand, which is the broad arrow hour. You've got the reference hour hand, which is this orange index that moves once around the dial every 24 hours. And you can see how these two things move separately. Now I can move my locality, even jumping the date forward and backwards without stopping the watch or affecting the other hands in any way. But now as I seek to set everything in sync, I pull the crown out to its final stop, clutched position, and you can see everything moves in sync and the second hand stops. Applique Omega logo, marquee indices, and tri-Arabic numerals. We have a few orange accents because that is the traditional signature color of the Planet Oceans. The watch has plenty of lume, no shortage in that regard. As you can see, very much like a dive watch, although again, it's not a diver because the bezel's bidirectional. You can line up the bezel pearl with the minute hand and easily distinguish those two from each other relative to the rest of the dial, which is blue. You can also see that all of the hands on the dial, all 4 of them are lumed, so you can tell time in its entirety in the dark. Bring back the light. The dial base is a lush and lovely black lacquer. This was before the arrival of the ceramic dials. And just to prove that to you, I will withdraw the hands so you can see underneath the hands as well as above the hands. No mention of a zirconium compound, so you know this is the lacquer dial, not ceramic. Flipping over, inside the 600-meter water-resistant case, We have a caliber based on the 8500 series. This is the 8605 twin barrels, bidirectional winding. 60 hours of power reserve. It pivots on 38 joules. You can see it features a anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, a full balance bridge, and a free sprung balance for shock resistance. This is a 5-position adjusted COSC certified Swiss chronometer. And you can see just below the balance, there's another bridge that bears the coaxial wheel. And you can see this is the tri-level coaxial. So at the highest level of the wheel, you have the end of the drivetrain driving the coax wheel, and then the lower two planes, the top plane is a toothed gear to mesh with the drivetrain, and then the lower two planes are coaxial escape wheels of different diameters, and you can really see all of that right there. So the George Daniels coaxial escapement, which you'll find only on Omega watches and those of Roger W. Smith, it is a double impulse, direct and indirect impulse, tangential friction system. So unlike a Swiss lever, it doesn't have sliding friction, it has a sort of rolling tangential friction to produce improved power reserve, improved chronometry, and reduced maintenance requirements. And this watch benefits from all of the above. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.